Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
Tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Lawrence Dotto. I'm excited, guys, to finally talk about some college football. We have the Final Four chosen, and all the bowl games have now been selected. There's 40 bowl games. It seems like a whole lot. We'll get into some of the bowl games, some of the more exciting ones, some of the ones that you can kind of ignore, because let's be honest, 40 bowl games, maybe 5 to 10 of them are a little boring. You don't have to really watch them. But I want to talk about if the college committee got it correct. I predicted that Clemson and Ohio State would be the 2-3, and LSU and Oklahoma would be the 1-4. I think this is the correct thing. LSU has been dominant all year. They've beaten Texas on the road. They've beaten Bama on the road. They beat Georgia. They beat Auburn. They've beaten everybody that they've needed to beat. And they've done it pretty convincingly, or there's very little doubt when they won their games. Oh, the Alabama game was an incredible game. Throughout the whole entire game, I was just thinking, wow, LSU's a better team, and they're better than Bama. At Bama, I mean, that's incredible. Nobody really goes into Bama and beats them like that, like LSU did. I mean, except for Auburn, but you got that rivalry, and it's just LSU. They've been amazing all year. I thought they should have been the number one just because of who they beat and how they beaten them and just how dominant they've been. And there's nothing to take away from Ohio State. Ohio State's been awesome all year. They dominated all year. But they're dominating teams like Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Michigan. I mean, they're good teams, yeah. They're very good teams, but they're just not SEC. They're not the elite level talent that LSU had to go through to get to where they are. Beginning of the year, nobody thought LSU was going to be this dominant, and they just came out from the start and punished every single team that they went against. They were a physical team, and I don't think anybody saw them being an offensive juggernaut like they are. And Joe Burrow has just turned that whole thing around. Now, LSU has an offense, and that's scary. LSU has an offense? Usually they just win by defense, but it's a different time. It's Coach O Coach O isn't a great X and O's guy. Nobody's ever going to get confused with him with some of the masterminds like Lincoln Riley or anything like that. What he does is very smart. He knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and he hires great coordinators. He has great coordinators at LSU. See, what you want about Coach O? The guy knows who to put around him to make the team better. He doesn't do anything with the offense for the most part. He likes to help out the big uglies up front. He likes to help out the D-line. He's a motivator. He knows how to get his team ready. And he leaves the play calling to his coordinators, which is brilliant. I mean, he's one of those guys, when the team doesn't do well, he'll take blame. When the team does do well, he gives it on the players and the coordinators. He's just a class act. He's exactly what college football needs. And he's been absolutely amazing for the sport of college football. Ohio State, they're the number 2 team. You can't. I have such a hard time saying Ohio State was above and beyond the number 1 team, which a lot of people are. Dominated Wisconsin, Penn State, all the Big Ten schools. We know this. They're a very good team. They're stacked defensively. They have talent everywhere. Their first year head coach is absolutely killing it. But I think if you put LSU and Ohio State on a neutral field, I would take LSU. Now Clemson is kind of It's so hard to be an underdog and the national champion and haven't lost a game in 2 years. It's just so hard to be that way, but somehow people are sleeping on Clemson. I would not be surprised if Clemson won the national title this year. They have the offense. They have Trevor Lawrence, who's an absolute stud. He's going to be an NFL franchise quarterback 1 year. He's going to be in the draft in 2021, so he'll be a number 1 pick. He's an absolute stud. The team around him is just full of talented players, but their biggest problem is they don't play anybody, and it's tough for them because you have Florida State, who's usually a juggernaut. They've been down for the last couple of years. You have Miami, who hasn't been good maybe since Warren Sapp played there, but they're usually a respectable franchise, but program, and now they've just been off, and it's hard to blame Clemson for everybody else not being good in the ACC. I mean, what do you want them to do? You want them to not recruit as well? You want them not to be coached as well? It's just Dabo has done an amazing job there. He's taken one of those. He's taken them and he's turned around Clemson. If you would have told me 10 years ago Clemson would be a national powerhouse in football, I'd probably laugh at you and think you're playing the NCAA football game where, you schedule all these cupcakes early in the year and then you just you do well recruiting and then you just kind of just win with Clemson. And it's this is so unrealistic. But Dabo's done it. He's basically playing NCAA football and making Clemson a national powerhouse. I'm personally picking Clemson over Ohio State just because of Dabo, of Trevor Lawrence, of the playmakers, and they've been there. They've gone into games where everyone thought Bama was going to absolutely destroy them, and they haven't. And you got to give credit where credit's due. Clemson just gets the job done, and I'm expecting them to get it done again. Now, Oklahoma, as the 4 seed, I think was the anticlimactic choice because there wasn't really any drama this year. There's not a lot of one-loss teams. There's not a lot of teams you can really argue about them. I personally would have put Bama in over them just because Bama's a better team. If you play Oklahoma and Bama, neutral field, I bet you Bama's a 14-point favorite against them, if not more. And that's just how I feel. Tua's hurt, so that hurts them too. So, Oklahoma earned it, but I don't think they're the 4th best team in the country, but the record says so, and it's so hard to put a 2-loss team in over a 1-loss team. You just can't honestly do that. Oklahoma is going to put up a fight against LSU. I mean, their offense is great. Jalen Hurts has been great, but they haven't seen a team like LSU this year. LSU's offense they're juggernauts. Joe Burrow's an absolute juggernaut. He's going to be the number 1 draft pick this year, depending on who gets it. And it's so hard to bet against LSU. I cannot see an instance where Oklahoma beats LSU. I just can't do it. I didn't see it with Georgia. I didn't see it with Bama. I just can't see them beating one of these big, strong, powerful SEC teams. I could be 100% wrong, and I think it would be an honest shock if they go and beat LSU. I just don't see it coming. I'm sorry, Oklahoma fans. I know Lincoln Riley's a genius. I know Jalen Hurts has been great. I know they have weapons all over the place. I just can't see it. I can't see it. Maybe I'm too dumb to see it. Maybe that's my problem, but I'm sorry, guys. I am honestly sorry. I just can't see him winning. I can't. I love LSU. I love Ohio State. I love Clemson. Again, it's been the big 3 all year once Bama fell off. There was a big 4 all year. Everyone was saying Ohio State, Clemson, Bama, LSU, and they were rightfully so. They've been the 4 best teams, and people mix in Oklahoma and Georgia and LSU, man, they have been absolutely amazing, and so have Ohio State and Clemson. I just want to remind you guys, again, subscribe, leave a review, like us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram. We're going to get those more involved. I know we haven't really been user-friendly with some of those, but I want to start getting content out there. I want to start putting polls out there. I want to know what you guys want to hear. I want to know what interests you guys. Do you guys want me to talk more college football? You want me to talk more basketball? You want me to talk more football? Do you want me to stop talking altogether? If that's the case, I'm sorry, you guys are stuck with me for at least a year. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm loving this. I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this. The national championship, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. It's going to be great. It's going to be three great games. And they're going to be, it's going to be every year that we keep having these great things. Say what you want to say. I think it should be an 18 playoff. At least 16 makes most sense. But before we move on to the next segment, I want to tease that we're going to talk about the Heisman hopefuls. There's a lot of Heisman hopefuls this year. I don't think there's been a runaway guy. I think Burrow might be the favorite. But there's a couple guys in there I think that aren't getting the love, that really need the love. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But for now, we're going to kind of talk about what does Georgia do? What does Alabama do? What does Penn State do? What are these big name programs? And where do they go from here? I mean, teams like Penn State and Georgia Georgia was one play away from winning the national championship. They're literally one game away from it every single year from being in the national championship or the playoffs. Alabama's still great, but do they still have the horses coming in that they usually do? Penn State, Michigan, what are these guys going to do? How are they going to compete? Is Oklahoma ever going to be that team that can get themselves above and beyond where they are instead of always being the four seed and getting eliminated? We'll find out when we come back. I'll tell you who I like, and I'll be back soon, guys.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright guys, we are back. We just talked about the national championship. We thought we're the Final Four. I'm really liking the Final Four. I think the committee got it right. Wouldn't argue they added Bama. Now, it sounded silly. Well, what are we talking about when we say, what's Bama doing? How is Georgia going to bounce back? How is Penn State going to finally, become that team that's not just, a top 12 team every year, but how are they going to get over the edge? A lot of that has to do with recruiting. Now, recruiting for the 2020 football team rankings, the top recruiting classes are Clemson 1, not really any surprise there. Alabama 2, they're not that far behind. LSU, they're not far behind. Ohio State. Texas A&M is coming up. I mean, they're number 5. That is shocking to me. Georgia 6, Texas 7, Auburn 8, Florida 9, and Oklahoma 10. Now, Oregon's 11, Penn State's 12, Notre Dame 13, and Michigan 14. Not really any surprises there. Clemson, guys, they are absolutely loaded. They had the number 1 recruit coming into 2020 season. They have Brian Bresee. He's an edge rusher. He's 6'5", 290. He's just a big, ugly up front. Number 1 national player. Number 1 at the position. Number 1, just a straight stud across the board. This is what winning does, guys. Alabama and Dabo Swinney has been absolutely killing it. They have Miles Murphy, another edge rusher who's just a 6'5", 260 monster. They have a quarterback. They have the number 1 quarterback. Well, actually, they have the number 1 quarterback in DJ. Oh my goodness, this guy's name, DJ Uiagalelei. He's from Hawaii. He's from Belleville, California. He's the number 1 guy. They have him coming in. They have the Trevor Lawrence apparent already. They just have stud after stud. They have running backs, D tackles, cornerbacks, all 5-star recruits Clemson, and it's just unbelievable. Now, Bama. Nick Saban, he's kind of like the Coach K of college basketball, of college football now. All he's got to do is show up and say, hey, you want to play for Bama? He doesn't have to do much recruiting, which doesn't sound like I'm giving him credit, but he is an absolute monster when it comes to recruiting. They have the number 1 dual threat quarterback in Bryce Young. He's a little tiny. He's 5'11", 182, but I think they can find ways for him to kind of get around there. Again, they just have top prospect after top prospect. I don't think Alabama's ever going to be hurting. Now, as of now, they only have 3 5-star recruits. That's not saying they're going to end up with more, because I'm 99% sure Bama's always going to end up with more. So once you lose Tua and you have this dual threat quarterback coming in, he's about 6 foot tall. He could be the next Tua. Tua's not a big guy. You just need that guy who can just make defenses stay on their toes. And Bama's they have Tua, who's going to go in the draft. They have this guy coming in. And teams like LSU, they're loaded again. They're the number 3 team. Ohio State, Texas A&M is, any team in Texas should be able to be dominant just from the fact that they're in Texas. They live, breathe, eat football there. Now, some other schools, not all these kids haven't committed yet, and that's rightfully so. But again, Clemson has 6 5-stars, Alabama has 3 5-stars, LSU has 3 5-stars, and Georgia's a team that really interests me. They're always right there. They're honestly always right there. They're so close to winning. They haven't. One thing that they've really been lacking is a guy that can get at the quarterback. They have the number 2 linebacker Cummings. He's committed to Georgia. He's an absolute stud. He's from Washington, D.C. They have Broderick Jones. They have an offensive tackle who's a monster. They have, all these offensive tackles and running backs and receivers come in there, and it's just like they have all these they've been a top 3 recruiting class, Georgia, for the last 3 or 4 years, but it just hasn't resulted in national championships. Again, they were 1 play away a couple years ago. But it just seems like they're going to be a treadmill team. They're just going and going and going. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, what do you think? All right, well, we're going to be a top 5 team every year, but are you ever going to be the number 1 team? What's going to put you over Clemson, Alabama, and now LSU? What are you going to do about that? And it's tough for them. They let Justin Fields go. He was the number 1 guy 2 years ago. Actually, 3 years ago, right? His sophomore year, so 3 years ago. And Oklahoma has a lot of 4-star recruits, but they're going to get a couple 5-stars. Again, it's insane how much these teams benefit from winning these playoffs. Like, if Oklahoma can upset LSU, I guarantee they're going to get 2 or 3 more 5-star recruits just based off that. And Penn State, they're one of those teams that seems to be always in the top 15 in rankings. But, I mean, their number 1 guy, they got a linebacker, a tight end, a receiver. They need some playmakers around there, and that's what they seem to be finally getting. They got some D tackles coming in. So Penn State seems to be doing this the right way. They're getting big uglies up front, the D tackles who are going to stop the run. They're going to get pressure on the quarterback. And now they're finally getting guys who can make some plays for them. I mean, they had Saquon, who was absolutely amazing. They had Miles Sanders, who was absolutely amazing. This year they didn't have that big name running back, which is fine. You don't need that every year. And receivers, I mean, Penn State, you might be sleeping on Penn State when it comes to this, but they've had some pretty good receivers come out of there in Penn State. And it looks like they're doing it again. It's a pretty good offense. It's not a great offense. I mean, they've had some decent quarterbacks. James Franklin has really done a great job turning around Penn State. There were rumors that he might leave Penn State for a Florida State or a bigger name school. I think that'd be kind of silly for him. I mean, Penn State, he's got them going. They just can't get past. They can't get past Ohio State, and that's kind of like the Georgia thing. They're the Georgia of the North. How are you going to get past Ohio State? You need to start beating them first of all, and then once you beat Ohio State, I know a lot of these recruits. I mean, Terrell Pryor a handful of years ago. I mean, that was a long time ago. What it seems like now. He was the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school, and his 2 choices were Penn State and Ohio State. So he was choosing between the 2. He would go on a visit to Penn State and be like, oh, I want to go to Penn State. He'd go to a visit to Ohio State. Oh, I want to go to Ohio State. And he basically made a decision based off Ohio State just has always dominated Penn State for the most part. I mean, Penn State wins a game here or there, every 3, 4, 5 years, but when you're trying to recruit, you have to choose between 2 national powerhouses. And you have to choose which one seems to be pumping out pros. Ohio State, you look at an NFL roster, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys from Ohio State on there all the time. Now, Penn State's starting to get back there again. They pump out linebackers, offensive linemen, now running backs. They pump out average quarterbacks. What can you do? Quarterback's the hardest kind of thing to predict and kind of develop. So Penn State, I mean, Terrell Pryor chose Ohio State, and I remember reading an interview, he's like, Penn State, that's a great school to play with. The fans are crazy. They're always sold out. They're always wild. And I mean, Penn State's known as a party school too. And then you have Ohio State. It's pretty much the same atmosphere, but Ohio State wins national championships. And that's what When you find guys in college that want to win national championship, those are the guys that I want to build my team around. They don't care about going to the pros. They don't care about doing all that. They want to be there for 4 years, win national championships. And that's what these guys are doing at Ohio State, Bama, Clemson. When you go there, you're going to be in the national championship contention pretty much 2 out of the 3 out of the 4 years you're there. And if you're going to tell an 18-year-old kid, you know what, come to Penn State, but we're just going to play for the Rose Bowl, which is there's nothing wrong with playing in the Rose Bowl. But you ask James Franklin, would he rather be be one of the Final Four, be playing in the Rose Bowl every year? He's going to choose the Final Four every single year. We're going to talk about some other, I know that got kind of boring for some of you guys possibly because I love the recruiting. The recruiting is absolutely fascinating. How these coaches get these guys to come there and, how many 5-star recruits actually pan out to be 5-star recruits. And, coaches find those diamonds in the rough, those 3 stars, and that they develop them, they get them right. For the next segment, we're going to talk about some of these bowl games. There's 40 bowl games. I want to go over the names. I want to go over which ones kind of caught my attention. I didn't want to look at it until I began this segment because I want to be caught by surprise by A, some of these matchups, and B, some of these names. Some of these names are just absolutely hilarious. Like, I don't know where these sponsors come from, but I love it. I honestly do. It's hilarious. And I love that they're just getting more bowl games, and they're just making it more exciting. They're playing games on Saturday afternoons. They're playing games on Friday afternoons. So once the NFL season kind of starts slowing down a little bit, college football, you can turn on a game Saturday afternoon, Friday afternoon. You got that, that gambler inside me absolutely loves that. So we're going to take a look at the bowl games. And again, I would like for you guys to subscribe, do all that. I want to start turning the Twitter page, the Instagram page into something more fun where I can interact with you guys and we can start asking questions and I can start answering for you. We'll talk some bowl games when we come back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back, guys. Thank you for being patient with me. So, some of these bowl games I want to talk about just right off the top. There's 40 of them, so we're not going to get through this segment. We're going to talk a little bit more. We're talking about kind of the lower end one now. Like, they do the rankings of the 40 bowl games, and we're going to talk about the 40 to 20 range here and some of the things that caught my attention, especially the names. Alright, so the number 39 ranked bowl game, according to some sites, is called the Potato Bowl. How perfect is that? The Potato Bowl, playing June 3rd at 3:30. It is Ohio versus Nevada. It's just an awesome name. I mean, you're going to get people tuned in. You're going to be looking through your TV and you're going to be like, oh, who's playing Ohio versus Nevada? Alright, I can mess with this game for a couple minutes, maybe a half. And then you see it's the Potato Bowl. You're like, yep, I'm in. Potato Bowl, here's my attention. Just take it, please. Awesome name. Teams I can't probably name one player from, but I mean, that's what the bowl season's about. You turn on these games and you kind of hear about a prospect from one of these teams. You're like, oh, my team's drafting, we got some picks in the second round. Maybe we got some small kids, small name kids coming out of some of these schools. So the Potato Bowl, 39. I know Ohio and Nevada may not be a real grabber, but that name has got to be higher on the list. It would be much higher than me. Let's see. We have the Cure Bowl, Liberty versus Georgia Southern. Ooh, Liberty. I know some dudes that go to Liberty. That's a lot. That's close to me, so a lot of local guys go there. And then Georgia Southern. Man, Georgia Southern. I don't know if you guys know where Georgia Southern is. It's literally in the heart of Atlanta. It's kind of like one of those schools that you see like online, like a Grand Canyon University. Nothing against them. I graduated from there with my teaching degree. But the Georgia Southern, like Georgia Southern, not Georgia? Georgia Tech? No, Georgia Southern. It should be a good game. Both these teams, these offenses can explode for a lot of points. Georgia Southern has those kids that, they might not be the top name recruits, but like, they get like the smaller school names, best players in Georgia. And if you know anything about college football, Georgia Southern gets those studs that come there and then, they might have lower GPAs and then they go there and then they transfer out. So Georgia Southern versus Liberty in the Cure Bowl, that has some potential right there. What's some other ones? The Frisco Bowl, Utah State versus Kent State. Kent State, they have some good pros coming out of Kent State. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. They had Julian Edelman, and that might be the only person I might know. But they had some running backs coming out of there. So, are you excited for Utah State, Kent State, the Frisco Bowl? No, Frisco Bowl, if it was the Frisky Bowl, maybe that'd be a little hilarious, but I'm not really too excited about that one. I don't mind the name, though. The Arizona Bowl, Wyoming versus Georgia State. See, now we got Georgia State, got Georgia Southern, we got Georgia Tech, we got Georgia, oh my God, there's so many Georgia teams. Wyoming's got they're starting to build something there. They got something. They got Josh Allen come out of there. They have some, linemen come out of there. So Wyoming versus Georgia State. Again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know that every single player in the roster, but Wyoming has some potential there, and Georgia State has a guy named Daniel Ellington who a lot of scouts are liking this kid, so this guy's some sneaky potential if you just get bored on the, New Year's Eve before you're getting ready to go out, 4:30, you have that white noise on in the background. I guarantee you the Arizona Bowl is going to be on your TV when you're getting ready to go out on New Year's Eve. So next we got the Red Box Bowl. Oh baby, this is what I like. I like the big name companies just throwing their name out there, just get the Red Box Bowl. It's Illinois versus Cal. It's December 30th at 4 p.m. Illinois, people forget they beat Wisconsin this year, and it was a huge upset. Illinois versus Cal. Cal had Aaron Rodgers go there. I mean, I'm just listing things when I think about these schools, and I think a lot of you guys do that. You're like, oh, Cal, who went there? Marshawn Lynch. Okay. Aaron Rodgers. Okay, yeah, I'll throw this game on. I mean, you're probably not going to be doing anything. I mean, between Christmas and New Year's, it's kind of like, I love it as a teacher because you kind of just have all that time off and you just flip it through the TV. Illinois versus Cal, I mean, this is going to be a low-scoring game. It's not going to draw a lot of appeal. But again, you're sitting there on your couch. You're just craving for some football. The NFL playoffs are slowing down. They're just getting started, but it's only a couple games on a day. Throw this on, and it's going to be entertaining. Always a crowd favorite. The Armed Forces Bowl, Southern Miss versus Tulane. If you're going to watch this game, chances are it's going to be the first time you watch either one of these teams. Southern Miss was one of, I talked about the NCAA football game a couple minutes ago. That was my team that I turned into a nationally ranked powerhouse with Southern Miss. Brett Favre went there. They got the sweet yellow and black. And Tulane didn't even have a football program a couple years ago. Didn't they get, they couldn't afford it anymore. And then they did some, fundraising, and now they have a football team. It's a great story. Never watched one of these teams play a football game before, but it'll be, again, January 4th, 11:30 in the morning. What are you going to be doing then? Probably laying down, just enjoying the weekend, so that's something I like. Music City Bowl, that has just a ring to it, but again, it's Louisville versus Mississippi State. Louisville's going to absolutely either dominate them, Mississippi State's either going to dominate Louisville, or it's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be a complete blowout or a nail biter. It's the Music City Bowl that has something. It sounds cool, but again, you're bored. 4 p.m. on December 30th. Check it out. The Bahamas Bowl. All right, so this is where the name sounds pretty cool, and you're like, oh, are they playing in the Bahamas? Man, that'd be pretty cool. If I watch the game play in the Bahamas, no, just Buffalo versus Charlotte. Buffalo has had some great pros coming out of there. They've had Josh Allen. That's about it. I mean, let's be real. Buffalo versus Charlotte, I think that'd be a better college basketball matchup than it would college football. But again, Bahamas Bowl sounds pretty sweet. Pinstripe Bowl, this is the New York Yankees fan probably favorite bowl. New York Yankee fans on Twitter love to give out pinstripes. Oh, Aaron Judge with that sweet single in the middle of July. He's earned his pinstripes. He really carried the team the last couple of games. The Pinstripe Bowl, I feel like it's Michigan State versus Wake Forest. Michigan State should dominate this. They're the better team. So during this game, I want you guys to kind of get at me on Twitter and be like, this guy earned his pinstripes, nice tackle. This guy earned his pinstripe, nice tackle. And I'm going to kind of agree or disagree with some of them. I'm a little bit more strict when I give out my pinstripes. You really have to earn them. But hey, the Pinstripe Bowl, we can make this fun over Twitter and it'll be a good time. Hawaii Bowl. It's on Christmas Eve at 8 p.m. You're doing two things at Christmas Eve. You're either a degenerate gambler, which I love because I am too, and you're hanging out with your family and you just want some white noise on in the background if you're not watching Christmas movies or anything. And this would be a good game. BYU versus Hawaii. I mean, I don't think you could have two different campuses in the country than BYU and Hawaii. Hawaii's on the beach. BYU, there's a lot of not beach stuff going on there. So it sounds like a great bowl. It's something that I would probably tune into that night if, the little one's asleep, the fiance's asleep. I'll turn into it just to kind of watch it. I mean, again, you can put on sword fighting, like how they have like the Olympic thing where not actual swords, because that would be pretty sweet, but they have they poke each other. I'd watch that if I can gamble on it. Hey, why not? Again, can you guys please subscribe, review, like? Do this. If you guys subscribe to the podcast, I want you to do something. Every day when you wake up, when you're going to the bathroom, when you're getting your morning routine done, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. It looks good for me, it looks good for the company, and it looks good at the higher-ups. Like, man, this guy's getting a lot of subscribes, and it could be two people just doing this for me, just helping me out. In 2020, we have some pretty big programs filling in some coaching vacancies. Some are a little bit well known than others, some are bigger names, some are more good recruiting guys. We're going to go over some of these replacements and maybe some other jobs that could open up in 2020. And I want to talk about, how these are going to impact the teams going forward and how they're going to kind of affect the teams around them. Because let's be honest, nobody saw Clemson coming. And it's because they hired Dabo and he's turned that whole program around. Is there a guy like that? I do. I believe there's a guy like Dabo who does great recruiting, knows how to get the guys ready, and can turn a program around in about 5 or 6 years. Because again, let's be honest. A lot of these guys, it's going to need 3, 4, 5 years because you got to bring your guys in. You got to get your system, planted. So when we come back, we're going to go about some of these coaches, some that I like, some I don't like, and some jobs that I think will open for the upcoming season. We'll be right back, guys.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. So, some of these coaching job openings, if you've been living under a rock, you probably haven't noticed that somehow Lane Kiffin has found another big-time school. He's back in a Power 5. You know what? Good for this guy. His face seems to be getting bigger with every job. I don't know how that is. He's a big face guy. I'm a pretty big face guy, so I kind of root for him a little bit. But he led Florida Atlantic to a pair of Conference USA championships in the last 3 seasons. When you can turn around those little programs, not disrespectful to programs like that in the Conference USA, but when you can turn those into consistent winners, that shows these big Power 5 schools. You're like, if he can do that here, he should have some success there. So Ole Miss hired Lane Kiffin. It's kind of hard for me to really disagree with this. You need a big name. You need to get those recruits. You need to get those guys coming in. Lane Kiffin's coaching the NFL. He was in Bama. He was an OC in Bama when they were dominant. They still are dominant. Florida Atlantic. He coached the Denver Broncos. He made Tim Tebow win a playoff game in the NFL. People forget about that. They were big underdogs against the Steelers, and Lane Kiffin and Tim Tebow, with the help from the man upstairs, got a playoff victory in the NFL. So, Ole Miss, since Hugh Freeze resigned, has been 11-14. So it's been a pretty tough 2 to 3 year stretch for him. Ole Miss is always one of those programs where it's like, they're good, they have good pros, they have their times where they're like, oh wow, this is a great school to, go to and play. They're in the SEC, but they're also one of those SEC schools that has kind of a little bit higher standards for the students. So you're not just going to go there with like a 2-0 and you're going to do it. Lane Kiffin, he knows the SEC. He knows how to recruit. He's always been a pretty good recruiter. He's one of those guys I feel like that's a really good BSer. He can tell you things that you want to hear. He's won when he's been at the smaller teams. He had a little success in the NFL. But is he going to turn Ole Miss into a Power 5, juggernaut? There's that word again. No, I don't think he is, but they're going to stay afloat. They're going to be a 500 team. It's going to be a little rough. Again, he's got to get his players in there. He's got to get his system incorporated. But Ole Miss, I think it's a win for Ole Miss, and I think it's definitely a win for Lane Kiffin, considering I think he's using this as, Saban's going to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. I think he still thinks he's going to get that Bama job. He could. But I'm just not. It's a great place for both of them. I think it's a good player. And if Lane Kiffin was smart, he would just stay there and just try to build something. Rutgers, I don't think Rutgers should be considered a Power 5. They've been awful ever since they went to the Big Ten. Now they brought back Greg Schiano. So Greg Schiano was there from 2001 to 2011, and he had a 68-67 record. So 1 game above 500, and people are going crazy about it. And I kind of agree with it. Now, the problem was the coach that was there before the New Jersey, a lot of people don't notice, but New Jersey is a powerhouse for football recruiting. There's an absolute powerhouse. Greg Schiano knows the area. He knows the people. He knows the coaches. He knows where to go. He knows how to get these guys to come to Rutgers. So when you can get Rutgers back on the map, 68-67 record. They're not in the Big East anymore. They're playing in the Big Ten, so that can help recruits come there. I think this is a great hire. He has a better understanding of what it takes to win in the Big East. He was in the Big East, the Big Ten East for a 3-year stint as Ohio State's defensive coordinator from 16 to 18. So he's going to be able to recruit. He's going to be able to bring guys in from Jersey. And again, Jersey has a lot of 5-star recruits coming out there. I mean, you had Saquon Barkley, you've had quarterbacks coming out of there, you have big offensive linemen coming out of there. If he can just start getting a handful of those guys coming in year after year, kind of build it up again, going 68-67, going above 500 at Rutgers is probably going to like 10 Rose Bowl games for any other school that's in the Big Ten. It's a great hire. The guy belongs there. He's making a crap ton of money. He's getting a $32 million deal. Not per year, that's like Steven Strasburg money. He's getting an 8-year, $32 million deal, $4 million a year. Good for him, good for Rutgers, and, they shouldn't be the laughingstock of the Big Ten anymore. Now, Washington just hired Jimmy Lake. Their coach just resigned out of nowhere, and caught a lot off guard. He's a first-time head coach, Lake. He was a defensive coordinator year. He was a defensive coordinator there. So now he knows the system, he knows the area, he knows the players. He spent 6 seasons in the NFL as a defensive back coach before going to Boise State. So Washington is one of those weird teams that in every sport they always seem to have a stud somewhere. Like Washington is more of a basketball area, but football, they always I feel like every 3 to 4 years they have a team that goes 10-2, 9-3, something like that, where they're like, oh wow, Washington's good, and then they kind of fall off because they have a stud quarterback or running back or whatever as a stud defense. Washington at this point, Jimmy Lake, been in the NFL, he's been a defensive coordinator, he knows, he's young, he's 42, so when you want to bring in those young guys, tend to recruit pretty well, tend to know the area pretty well, I think it's a win for Washington. Jimmy Lake should be fine in Washington. Now, Ole Miss, or Florida State, this is the one that I really think is a good hire. So they bring in Mike Norvell from Memphis. He won the American Atlantic Conference Championship game. The 38-year-old was among the most coveted group of 5 hires of the 4-year stint with the Tigers that produced a 38-15 record. So he made Memphis over the last 5 seasons have a 38-15 record. That's amazing. Memphis. We're not talking about basketball. We're talking about football. Now, Florida State is one of those weird places, again, because they don't really put money into their program. They don't put it in for the resource. They don't put it into the gym. They don't put it into the big, fancy area that, the recruits love. I'm going to Florida State. They have this sick, gym. They have this sick locker room. Florida State's kind of stuck in the past with that, so that could hurt him, but maybe he can convince him to turn money. Florida State's loaded in the state of Florida with recruits, so if this guy, Memphis has sent 8 players to an NFL draft last 4 seasons, including 4 skill position players, so he's an offensive-minded guy. Florida State needs to, there's no good second team, consistent team in the division, so they can start competing with Clemson in about 3 to 4 years. I think it's a great hire. Mike Norvell is a guy that you really like. Here's the one that I think can really turn into the next Dabo Swinney, and that's Sam Pittman getting hired at Arkansas. A lot of people don't know who this guy is, but he was a previous head assistant coach and offensive line coach at fellow SEC program Georgia. This guy, he's 58, and he's considered as one of the strongest recruiters, and he was the highest paid offensive line coach in college football at $900,000 per year. That is huge. He was promoted to the assistant head coach in Georgia in February. That's how great this guy is. He's a great recruiter. Again, like I mentioned before, Georgia's been top 3 in recruiting over the past 5 seasons, and this guy has a lot to do with it. He knows how to get out there. He knows how to get these kids going. In Arkansas, SEC school, they're going to get exposure. They're going to be able to go to the pros. I think Sam Pittman in Arkansas is a beautiful hire for them. He's not this young, sexy head coach who's going to come in and be like, oh, this guy, look at this guy calling offensive plays. He's a stud. He's going to get the job done. He's going to recruit, and he just knows he's been around a winning program in Georgia. And that people don't understand the importance of that. When you're around winning, you get used to winning. You know how to build a winner. You know what to do. You know how to get the team ready. You know how to do all these little things that people that haven't won in a while kind of forget how to do. The biggest thing in college football, being dependable, which he is, being a good coach, and being a great recruiter. He's a great recruiter. Arkansas found themselves an absolute stud in Sam Pittman. Now, there are a lot of Heisman Trophy hopefuls. And some are obvious, some aren't. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the guys that are a little bit under the radar. And I do think Joe Burrow is going to win the Heisman Trophy, but I don't want to just hand it to him. I want to make a case for some of these other guys. So when you tune in, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, this guy is just definitely going to win it. I want to make you guys sound smart around the water cooler come up the next couple of weeks. When we come back, we'll talk Heisman Trophy hopefuls.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you again for staying with me. We're going to talk about the Heisman Trophy finalists. Now, again, Joe Burrow, absolutely redshirt senior quarterback stud. He went from being just a regular guy to being the best quarterback in LSU history, and who's going to be the number one pick and is the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And it's hard to argue against that. He's a thrower, he's a runner, and more important, he's a leader. And when you win these Heisman Trophies, you kind of put your name on the map. You put that burden on your shoulders. And Joe Burrow has done all of that. He will become the 7th quarterback in history to throw for 50 scores. So he's thrown for 50 scores. He's only the 7th one to do that. That's amazing. A lot of these dual threat guys are going to have 50 touchdowns because they have like 12, 10, 12, 14 rushing touchdowns. He's doing it with passing the ball. Don't get me wrong, absolute studs on that team at LSU. You got Jefferson, you got whose kid? Randy Moss's kid is on the team. I mean, you just have studs. But again, you got to get them the ball because we've seen stud receivers not be able to get the ball with average quarterbacks. Because everyone's always like, oh, if you're a stud receiver, you should catch the ball. It's not always the case. Joe Burrow's getting his studs the ball. And he's the favorite, and it's hard to argue against it. So now we have one of the guys who I'm a little upset that Georgia got rid of. Justin Fields, he's a sophomore quarterback again. Another transfer quarterback. He was a number national one recruit that we mentioned before. He tossed 40 touchdowns and only 1 interception. That is incredible. Are you kidding me? He's got a 40-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You just don't hear of that. He takes care of the ball. He's only a sophomore. He's playing at Ohio State. He's got a target on his back. We're playing at Ohio State. He transferred out of Georgia. And this guy is just, he's not only putting up numbers, but he's doing it efficiently. He's going to be a number 1 pick. He's going to be a top 5 pick when he comes out. He's just a once in those generational quarterbacks. And we're being spoiled in college football with the Burrows, the Tuas, the Fields, the Trevor Lawrences. We're getting spoiled with this, and a lot of people really aren't appreciating it like I do. When you watch any level of football, and you have a truly, truly, truly special quarterback, it just changes the game. It changes the way you watch it. It changes the way you root for your team. It changes the way you root against teams. Justin Fields is an absolute stud. He's probably not going to win it, but if I know. He's not going to win it. It's going to be Joe Burrow's, but Justin Fields probably should get more first place votes than he is. The problem that I have with the Heisman Trophy is that it's turning into it's kind of like the NFL MVP. It's turning into who's the best quarterback, not who the best player is. But it's so hard to ignore how important the quarterbacks are to the game of football that basically the MVP and the Heisman Trophy is turning into the best quarterback. J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State is an absolute monster. He's that guy. He went from averaging 18 carries his first 10 games to more than 33 in the final 3. So Ohio State really understood the importance of this guy. You have him, you have the Jonathan Taylors from Wisconsin, you have these absolute stud running backs. You have the Chuba Hubbard, Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. My apologies. These running backs that are just studs, but J.K.'s just kind of stepped up. He's being that guy, and he's one of those. I was listening to an interview with him, and he's just not happy with being on the number one team, being the lead guy, being one of the best running backs. He just wants to win, and he wants to be the best at doing it. He's now this is unbelievable. Ohio State has had some stud running backs come out of there. He put up 172 yards against Wisconsin. He is now the number 2 rusher in Ohio State history beside R.G. Griffin. You're not going to be... you can take away Justin Fields. You can double his best weapons. You can make him beat with his arm. You know, it might happen, but the way the kid's been playing, probably not. You cannot beat Ohio State if you don't stop J.K. Dobbins. You just can't do it. He's so good. He's going to be the Saquon Barkley of fantasy drafts when he comes out, which is probably going to be at the end of this year. He's going to be that guy in your fantasy draft next year. You're going to go, oh, I'm spending a first round pick on him. Have you seen him? You know, unless he ends up in like Miami or he ends up in a team that's absolutely awful running the ball and has a bad offense. This kid is going to be on everyone's fantasy radar come next year. You can mark my words now. He's going to be a stud. He's going to be a guy that you want. Keep an eye out for him. Watch him the next couple games because he's going to be a first round pick in the NFL draft. There hasn't been a winner of the Heisman Trophy that hasn't been a defensive end, I think, since, was it Charles Woodson? I mean, the guy, Chase Young needs to be, he's going to be the defensive player of the year. The guy's an absolute monster. He's so good. He's kind of like the Bosa's over the last couple of years. When you saw the Bosa's play in college, when they weren't quitting on their team early, that he's a different level of athlete. He really is. He's such a powerful, mean, strong, fast defensive end. I love when you have these defensive ends that come out and just dominate. And he has not been stopped. He's going to be the number 2 pick in the draft. I think it's going to go Burrow, then Chase Young. He's going to be one of those guys again that we look back on it in the pros in 5-6 years and be like, oh my God, like this guy playing college football is completely unfair. So Chase Young, I think, should get some votes with how dominant he's been, and he's made Ohio State's defense that good. I think if you take him off that defense, they're still an elite defense because they have some nasty weapons in the secondary. But if you take him off, Ohio State's defense goes down tremendously in fear factor. Jalen Hurts and Jonathan Taylor really need to be mentioned. Jalen Hurts started off at Bama, and he was more of a game manager. And every time people would watch him play, they would kind of be like, oh, Jalen Hurts, like, yeah, he doesn't scare me. He's not really somebody that's going to go out there and throw for 300, 400 yards. Boy, were we wrong. This dude balled out in Oklahoma. He really did. The guy, he's putting up Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray stats. I think he needs to be mentioned. I don't think he's going to win it. But man, talk about a turnaround. Once he got taken over for 2 in the national championship game, I was one of them, and I know there's many other people that are like, this guy's done. You know, he'll be a great coordinator somewhere in a couple years, and he's just not talented enough to play in the NFL. He's boosted himself to be a second, maybe late first round, early second, third round pick. He's going to be someone that could turn around some franchise. He's got some like Teddy Bridgewater. He's got some more athleticism than people give him credit for, but talk about a great turnaround. I just tip my cap to him. He's been absolutely amazing. Jonathan Taylor's going to be one of those guys, again, that's going to be a huge fantasy football name. He has 6,000 rushing yards in his NCAA career, and he's been a monster catching, he's trying to become NCAA's all-time rushing leader. Not just Big Ten, not just Wisconsin, but NCAA's all-time rushing leader. The dude's a monster. Jonathan Taylor is going to be day 1 draft pick. He should go in the first round because teams say, oh, you don't need running backs. Look at the teams in the NFL that don't have running backs and tell me you don't need a running back. Look at the Miami Dolphins. Awful, don't have a running back. Look at how bad the Patriots are struggling without a good run game. Look how bad the Eagles are struggling without a run game. You get a running back. Sorry, I had a little brain fart there. You get a running back who can carry the ball, get you 4 or 5 yards of carry, change your whole team. Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins are the guys that are going to be huge fantasy monsters next year. We're not really talking about that. We'll get that in some other shows. But when we come back, we're just going to talk a little college football. We're going to talk about some other bowl games. We're going to talk about some other players that really caught my attention. I want to talk a little bit about these receivers that are coming out. These receivers are absolute monsters and going to be guys that you want your team to draft. When we come back, talk a little, just some random college football. We're going to talk about some of these receivers. Again, I'm going to get some of you guys excited for some of these receivers. There's about 6 to 8 of these receivers that are going to be game changers for your NFL team that needs help. So when we come back, talk more college football, talk some, potential NFL studs, and, just get you guys excited for some of these other bowl games because there are some really great matchups.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
I am so excited to talk about some of these receivers. I love those big play, just game-changing wide receivers. The first one that I want to talk about heading into next year's draft is going to be Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. This guy right now has Michael Thomas, Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss upside. This guy's an absolute catching the ball, to running routes, to being physical, to being fast. He's got all of the abilities that you want. Now, Alabama's produced some monster receivers. They really have over the last couple of years. And Judy's going to be one of these guys that continues to be one of the absolute studs. He's excellent after the catch. He's elusive in the open field. And he's got, it's a little bit underrated quality, but he's got feet that are going to make that he's going to duck tackles. He's going to be able to stop and start. And he's going to cut through the secondary. His yards after the catch skills combined with speed make him very dangerous to turn on a reception into a long gain. And that's what you want in today's NFL. I mean, you have guys just running straight down the field. Okay, that's cool. But when you have those guys that can make defenders miss, you can make, those cut on the dimes, you can run these routes. Judy's the guy that if your team needs a receiver, that's who you want them to go after. He's just the perfect receiver in terms of ability and quickness and catching ability. He marks every single one. He obviously you're not going to pick this guy number 1, but if you get this guy at 5, 6, anything even later, it's going to be a pretty good steal for your team. Another guy that I'm really excited about is CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma. He got a lot of targets. He kind of has like that Juju Smith-Schuster type game. And he struggled a little bit they struggled getting him the ball. But when we saw them go against Baylor, the guy was an absolute monster. He has a body and the physique of a number 1 receiver. He's 6'2", 190. Great hands, run good routes, and he's a polished wideout. 6'2" is kind of like that size that you're like, okay, well, he's not tiny, but you don't want those guys that are 6'4", 6'5", because they're just slow. They don't really get open very often. CeeDee Lamb at Oklahoma. There's a lot of studs coming out of this year's draft that are going to really benefit your fantasy team. CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, those are going to be the guys. This is going to sound a little weird, but I'm going to talk about a receiver out of Liberty. His name is Antonio Gandy Golden. He had 70 receptions for 1,300 yards. Wow, that was a brain fart. Holy moly. This is what happens when you record a podcast at 4:30 a.m. He's a size mismatch. He's 6'4", 220. He's not the fastest guy, so if he runs well at the combine, he's going to shoot up to a first round pick. He's out of a small school. It's back-to-back years of 70-plus catches, over 1,000 yards, and he's has 19 touchdowns in the last 2 years. He's that small-town guy that's kind of raw, but when you see that size at 6'4", 220, he runs a 4.5, which isn't anything to kind of just be like, oh, he's slow. This is a guy, Antonio Gandy Golden, is a guy that you want on your rosters, and just go to YouTube and watch this guy play. He just looks like a man out there. He's just a big guy that you can throw the ball up, he can catch the ball, he can run good routes. He's a guy that's going to be a very sneaky receiver heading into drafts next year. Now, maybe my favorite receiver is Justin Jefferson out of LSU, 6'3", 192. He has 75 catches this year for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. LSU just seems to pump out these receivers that are just studs. Odell's, the Landrys. I love this kid. Just watching, when you watch the next couple of games of LSU, watch this guy. People know the ball's going to him. He's still going to catch it. He's still going to run you over. He's a big play guy, but he's also somebody that can just go across the middle and catch a ball. It has to. These receivers that I'm talking about, I mean, I can talk for hours more about them. I'm not going to bore you guys, but these big names that I want you guys to keep an eye out for. Jefferson, the Judy Jerry, the CeeDee Lambs, the Antonio Gandy Goldens. These four guys, along with maybe 4 or 5 others, are going to be big play monsters every game in their NFL career. There's going to be guys that you're just like, wow, when they're on, you want to watch them. Now, I told you guys that I want to talk a little bit more about the bigger college bowl games. Now, the Rose Bowl is one of those big games that kind of caught my attention. You have Wisconsin coming out of the Big Ten, and they're going to be playing Oregon, who's kind of a high-powered offense going against a Wisconsin team that really wants to slow the ball down, give the ball to their stud running back. This is probably going to be my second or third favorite game besides the national championship games. Oregon is just a team that always seems, since Chip Kelly left, to be better than they were expected to be, but they just haven't been considered a national championship caliber team. Same with Wisconsin. Again, they're both going to be top 10 teams every year, but are they ever going to be a team that's going to be raising the trophy at the end of the year? I don't know about that, but this is going to be a great game to watch. I'm picking Wisconsin to win. Now, the next game that's really going to be probably the most popular, that non-Final Four game, is going to be the Citrus Bowl. It's Alabama versus Michigan. The biggest problem with this is Alabama is not used to not being in the Final Four. They're just not. So it's going to be interesting to see how their potential number 1, round 2 picks are going to be. Are they going to play? Are they going to sit? Does Saban even care about a Citrus Bowl? Going to be honest, probably not. But I think it's the complete opposite for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. If Michigan can beat Bama in this bowl game, it's finally going to give him the chance to puff out his chest. He's not beating Ohio State. He's going to beat a Bama team that's probably not going to play most of their studs. So if he can just get this win and Bama doesn't sit everybody, it's going to be a great look for Michigan. And again, for Alabama, it's just whatever. We're not playing for a chip here, so I really don't care. We go out there and play, have some fun. If we win, we win. We don't, we don't. But again, this can come around to Jim Harbaugh. If Alabama sits to some of their studs and they still beat them, that's not going to be a good look for Jim Harbaugh. And he might be looking for the NFL because he's a great recruiter, but the college game doesn't really fit the way that he wants to play. He's having a hard time recruiting quarterbacks. He's struggling a little bit in that aspect. But again, this could literally turn around Michigan. This could be like, oh, Michigan beat Bama, let's go. We're finally back there. Now let's start beating Ohio State now. Probably not going to happen when Justin Fields is going to be there, but huge game for Michigan. Just a show-up game for Alabama. I mean, as bad as that says, they just don't care. I mean, if Clemson was in the same spot, they'd be the same exact way. The next game that's going to be very interesting, and it'll be the last one we talk about, is the Sugar Bowl in Georgia versus Baylor. This is going to be a game where everyone's like, oh, I'm pounding the over. Let's give me that 80 points. I don't care. Both teams aren't going to play defense. Both teams play really good defense. So Georgia a lot more than Baylor. So this is going to be a game that's going to be like, oh, this is going to be a 45-40 final. No, it's going to be like a 21-17, 24-21 final. Love the game. There's a lot of prospects that are going to come out of this, especially on Georgia's side. Georgia's going to have 2 offensive linemen that can potentially go in the first round. Maybe they're definitely going to have 1. I mean, they're still going to have Jake Fromm. It's going to be interesting. Jake Fromm, if he leaves, he's probably going to be a borderline first round pick. And Georgia's just they got great players at running back. They got great players on the defense. And it's going to be one of those teams that it's, they lost to LSU, the number 1 team, so they got knocked out of the Final Four. But Georgia still wants to win. I mean, Kirby Smart wants to keep up these trophies and these accolades about winning. It helps you in recruiting, but I'm telling you what, if Georgia doesn't win the national title next year, or at least get to the championship game, it's going to be Kirby Smart's going to have to think about some things, maybe changing some play calling, doing something, because the offense has really struggled in big games. And this could be a huge win for Baylor. Baylor turns this around. Baylor's like, oh man, we just couldn't get by Oklahoma, and now we showed that we could beat a big boy in Georgia. So a lot of these games might not seem like a lot to some of these teams, like the Alabamas and the Georgias, but it could mean the world for the Baylors and the Michigans. So I'm hoping all these teams play all their players so we get some great games come, especially after New Year's. So that was our college football podcast, guys. Subscribe, like, rate, do all that stuff for me. Let's start talking on Twitter. Let's get some polls going. Let's get discussion coming, because I would love to hear other parts of the country and how they feel about certain games. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Lawrence Dotto, and thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From football to basketball, baseball to MMA, and even soccer. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast.